Nah, I seen this cat online before, Elliot Hustle. I followed his fitness regimen. He knows what he's talking about. But he also knows what he's talking about as far as what he's about to talk about in this little lesson here for y'all people. I'm going to let y'all listen. Here you go.
We are in pain, people of mixed race. And you know it too, those of you guys who are clearly of mixed race. I'm not talking about people, oh yeah, my mom's Italian and my dad is Irish. No, that's not what I'm talking about. You're white and white. I'm talking about people who are white and black, or white and Indian, or white and Asian, where there's a clear distinction between the different parts of who we are. You know, I can look pretty damn white. I can act white, talk white, got blue eyes, but then I got these nigga lips, right? Which are so beautiful. And the big wide palate and nostrils, you know, that are very African, are very primal in that way. And I love the fact that I'm both ways. But the pain that we experience as mixed race people is a deep primordial need for belonging.
Okay, I wish more biracial people were like this, brother. He comes out, he knows he's got thick lips and a broad nose, and he's proud of it. Like, you know, I'd be willing to bet that most mulattoes don't like their negroid features. He embraces his. Kudos to this brother, man. But also, I do notice that there is a longing for acceptance, because the blacks don't accept them because they're part white, and the whites don't accept them because they're part black. I used to hang around with a kid, and he said a lot of people just didn't want to be his friend because he was part white and part black. He said that to me, and he had the kind of disposition that this young man has.
And although I believe that we can transcend that, like I transcend that, and I have a deep sense of belonging as it relates to American values, and Jesus and religious values, and as it relates to being a man, masculinity, manhood.
He talked about the values and different things that he got instilled in him, and about how to be a man. I bet you he was raised by his father, who happened to probably, I will bet, he comes from a white man and a black woman. And his father was probably around and taught him values and stuff like that. Like, you know, in too many cases, it's a single family home with a white female raising a black boy, or a mixed boy, mulatto kid. And he ain't getting those values on how to be a man. I've seen it several times in the school district. There was a lot of kids who was mulatto, and their fathers just weren't around. They didn't even know their dads, but you could look at them and tell they was black. But it was just the same story over and over and over and over. So, yeah.
I suffered much, not knowing who I am, where I fit in. The blacks, the whites, both were opportunistic in various ways, and you know, I was good to them when it was good for me to be good to them, and I chose them when it was better for me to be a part of either one of them.
Now, he talked about both groups of people liking him when it was opportunistic. I bet you the black people embraced him if he was good at sports. Like if he was a good football player, which he looks to have been a good football player. So he probably got embraced by the black people with that. But as far as basketball, he looks like he'd have been more like a wrestler. I was on a wrestling team, and wrestling is not your pure athleticism type of sport. We used to play a pickup game of basketball as we were waiting for the bus to come take us over to the other school if we had a meet. And we would be playing basketball, and you could tell basketball players are wrestlers trying to play basketball. Now, I will say I was one of the better wrestlers that were trying to play basketball, but am I ever going to think I can go play in the Ruckus or be a McDonald's All-American? Nah.
But I think we would be far better off, and a lot of these are new ideas for me that I've only been able to adopt by even listening to and digesting the words of Jesse Lee Peterson, who's got a YouTube channel you guys might be interested in watching, where he talks about how segregation wasn't nearly as bad as we have been forced to believe it is, And in fact, the African American community did far better during the segregated times than when integration was forced.
Now, he's right about that. I'm willing to go ahead and say desegregation or integration was probably the worst thing that happened to the black community. In more ways than one. One would be we had a different standard of we had better family structure. It was a disgrace to be a single mom in the 40s and 50s. You got moved to the country and nobody ever saw you again. Because, it just wasn't a thing to be proud of. Now, with this matriarchal black household, it's long to be a single mom. It's rewarding to be a single mom. So that messed that up. There was a different standard of beauty. Like black women with their negroid features and their actual hair growing out of their scalp was considered attractive. We thrived better economically because we kept our dollars amongst ourselves and didn't spread them amongst the integration basically let the black dollar be spread amongst other communities, Koreans, you know what I'm saying? Arabs, white people, all but black people. So that wasn't good. So yeah, integration wasn't a good thing, man. Because that Black Wall Street and those kind of communities, they thrived when it was just black on black. Not black on black crime, black on black thrive as far as financially, man.
And so now in retrospect, I can see how the history lessons of the past that forced integration were unnaturally forced. I think if integration happens, that it should happen normally and naturally. I don't think we need propaganda, and I don't think we need the state to force integration.
And that's why I do say segregation wasn't the best thing, because it was forced. I don't understand how people expect, now basically, people feel the same way they felt before integration, but they just smile at you now. I liked it more when I knew you didn't want to be bothered with me, so therefore by default, I'm not going to be bothered with you. Now you don't know. The biggest racist is them white liberals. It's what they tell me anyway. So if they're coming at you, smiling, trying to benefit, trying to pretend like they're trying to be at your benefit, well, I'd rather have it to where you're calling me a nigger and spitting tobacco.
But I also see that living side by side with distinct cultures and colors is good, because it allows each culture to do what it does best, each race to do what it does best. And as long as we can come together on fair meeting grounds and honor contracts, which I know doesn't always happen, and that's idealistic also too, to do great work for one another. So Jesse Lee talks about how the African American community there were a ton of entrepreneurs because they were building up their own communities. They were businessmen, they were entrepreneurs, as opposed to being dependent on the state. In the black communities these days, and it's not about being prejudiced, because I can relate to both. You go to most black communities and they're not businessmen, unless they're street hustlers. And the majority of people are on government assistance. This is what integration has created for us. This is what state dependence has created for us. And I'm talking to black people as a 50% black from Africa.
And how he phrased it, said this was a result of what integration did to us. He didn't say y'all. He said us. This man identifies as black, man, for real. And it's a shame, and I don't mean this to insult him, because I'm the same. I got the same type of demeanor. He's celebrated by Caucasian females than he is by your hood rat ratchet chicks, or even your Gabrielle Union, Sanaa Lathan, Tiffany Haddish type. She was on there, Tiffany Haddish, crying about being lonely and stuff like that. That's her own fucking fault. Because, see, Hollywood has created an image that these black women want to go for, that they just overlook the average black man or the above average black man. They just overlook him because he ain't looking like he's dunking the basketball, with wavy hair and shit like that, man. These black broads really need to get a grip. They're a product of their own demises, their own decisions as to why they're lonely. And I don't feel sorry for them.
Much of what we have been led to believe as it relates to racism, I think, has been an agenda that has been pushed on us, and it is wrong, and it creates victims and victors, and it creates more separation than actual segregation does.
He's right, man. It's like, yeah, I just seem to think that if different races didn't interact with each other, but had everything separate but equal, well, there would be a mutual respect there to where you can have a superficial conversation that could grow into a more, I guess the word is official conversation, where it's like Malcolm X said, the white man's got to be able to say things to the black man and the black man not get offended, and vice versa. Till that is able to happen, it like this racism will go on and on forever. Like, as far as, like, I didn't even want to really say this, but I think part of the reason why marijuana might not be legal is because people from different cultures will partake in smoking some herb. They'll get hungry as a natural result. They'll get hungry and they'll share a meal with each other, which will result in conversations like the ones I just talked about that needed to be had. That's why. At least that's my opinion anyway.